morning, everybody. Welcome to the Backbone Podcast, where common sense still makes sense in a world that is sick and only getting sicker. And over the course of the past week, we've been caught up with the football and all that other good stuff. But this is another story that I wanted to get into. The Jerusalem Post, a very prominent newspaper in, Jerusalem, Israel. What was the date they did this? It doesn't really say. Of course not. Oh, November 22nd, 2025. So this is before Thanksgiving. They have demanded that Pope Leo XIV denounce Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes for the sole purpose of they're Catholic and they don't like Jews, or they speak out against Jews, or they speak out against Israel more specifically. This is an op-ed, of course. It's not a article or a news article. So it's all opinion, and that's how it's protected. Because the newspaper can say, op-eds, this is the reason why every newspaper has an op-ed, hey man, we're freedom of speech. We gave this person the opportunity to write their article and say what they have to say. We don't stand by it. We don't, we don't, their words don't represent us in any way. You take it for what it is. That's what op-eds are. You can almost say anything you want within reason, and the newspaper is not obligated to defend it or any such thing like that. I'm going to read you a couple of paragraphs from this article. It was written by Michael Frund, and I bet you know what tribe he's from. Michael Frund, November 22nd, 2025, the Jerusalem Post. The article is entitled, Pope Leo XIV must denounce Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes for sinful anti-Semitism. And here we go. Across the United States, anti-Semitism is not merely rising, it's metastasizing. Ooh, big word. It has taken on new forms, new platforms, and new proponents who weaponize modern media to amplify an ancient hatred. Among most of the toxic of these figures are Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens, two of the most influential and hostile anti-Jewish voices in America today. And there is an uncomfortable and undeniable fact that demands a response from the Vatican. Both are fervent Catholics who routinely invoke their faith while also spewing bile and hate. Fuentes, a self-styled, quote-unquote, America First agitator. Why is he an agitator? Has built a large online following by preaching rage, conspiracy theories, and unapologetic Jew hatred. He's also praised Hitler, admires Stalin. He said he read about him. Minimized the Holocaust, revived medieval slanders, like what? And cast Jews as enemies of America and Christianity. Well, duh. Bro, you're not saying anything that nobody already knows. He calls for a Christian nationalist, and those are in quotes, America that excludes Jews altogether. Well, because Christian nationalists wouldn't involve Jews anyway. Fuentes reveals an extremist rhetoric while positioning himself as a defender of Catholic teachings and traditions. Owens, meanwhile, peddles in the same toxins. Over the years, she has repeatedly used social media platforms to spread virulent anti-Semitic tropes about Jews, Jewish influence, and power. According to Anti-Defamation League, she has claimed that Judaism is a quote-unquote pedophile-centric religion that believes in demons and child sacrifice. If you look at history, if you look at this is me talking, not the article. You know what? Yeah, it was a very weird cult. It was considered a cult in a lot of these countries. That's why they were kicked out of all of these countries. I don't know, what's the number? 106, 109, whatever the fuck it is. They all can't be wrong. But I digress. She has minimized the Holocaust and blamed Israel for the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Like Fuentes, she proudly identifies herself as Catholic since her conversion last year. This matters because when two of the most visible anti-Jewish voices in American life, both assert and regularly affirm their Catholic identity, it risks confusing millions of people. All right, I don't know what that means, but a lot in what this guy said in the article, I mean, a lot of people feel this way. I mean, a lot of people believe that the Jews killed Jesus. I mean, just read St. Matthew's Passion. It's word for word. And to say that Nick Fuentes is minimizing this and denying that, and he has hatred and rhetoric. I could show you videos, hours and hours of videos where rabbis are sitting in synagogues in front of young Jewish men talking about how Jesus is in hell boiling in shit, how the Virgin Mary was a whore. I can show you videos of Jewish men, mostly Hasidim, spitting on the floor when they see Christians or Catholics in Jerusalem. Over and over again, I've seen videos, especially during Palm Sunday and Easter, where Jews are throwing vegetables and fruits at vegetables mostly, or even rocks at nuns and priests who are walking the Via Appia. No, not the Via Appia. What the hell is the name of that road that Jesus walked to Calvary? I mean, this is not something that is new. This is commonplace. It's been commonplace for years. Many, especially the Hasidics, want to see Christians dead. They don't want to see us alive. And for this guy to write this article to demand that the Pope call out two podcasters, that says a lot. That says a lot in favor of what Candace and Fuentes are saying. Because if these two people are just two kooks who don't know what they're talking about, then you just ignore them. I mean, the rules for radicals tell you that. You minimize and you ridicule these people so people laugh at them and don't take them seriously. But when you write articles like this, or op-eds, I should say, demanding for the Pope, the head of the largest church in the world, that he call out two podcasters in America, that legitimizes them. It legitimizes them in a very, very big way. They're playing the game wrong. They're playing this game wrong. They're using old tactics, and those tactics don't work anymore. To be frank, if the Pope did take time out of his day to say, hey, this guy Fuentes and Candace Owens, they don't know what they're talking about. Okay, goodbye. Nobody would care. The Pope holds sway. If you looked at his visit to Lebanon and Syria, he's like a rock star. There were almost 150,000 Catholics in Beirut to see him the last week. But the advent of social media, the explosion of it, has just made it impossible to silence people who have different ideas than you. Impossible. And the Jewish lobby has no way of handling this. They can go to sponsors and they can go to YouTube and they can go to all these places and try to get these people demonetized and banned and all that other shit. But there'll be another YouTube. There'll be a Rumble. There'll be a BitChute. There'll be something new. There'll be X. There'll be all these places that you can go to and say what you feel, whether you agree with it or not. They have a right to say it. And these people here are now running for their lives and in desperation mode to silence these two people. And my question is, why? If they're so crazy, if they're so ignorant, if they're so lost in the wilderness, just ignore them. Nobody's going to pay attention to them. And sooner or later, the people who do pay attention to them will figure it out for themselves. But no, this is too scary, because there must be some legitimate beefs and gripes here. There must be something under this speech, under this vitriol, that is scaring the shit out of these people. Now, I have an interview here from Piers Morgan. This was also last week with a panel, but the guy that I really wanted to concentrate on was this guy Shmuley. This is the guy. He's like a rabbi or something. He sells vibrators with his daughter over the internet. He's a vile, hideous, loathsome individual. He looks like the comic book drawings that the Jews used to do, that Nazis used to do for Jewish propaganda. He looks just fucking like that. And he's a vile person. And I want you to pay attention to the way he attacks Nick Fuentes, because this is specifically about Nick, how he attacks Fuentes personally, not an ideology. And there's one word that he never calls him. There's the test, kids. Here they are.
Nick Fuentes has a growing number of followers, a growing amount of influence. The more people are trying to cancel him, the more his views have become more widely disseminated and the more popular he seems to have got. What do you feel about this? And what do you think should be done about it?
Nick Fuentes is not MAGA. He's MAG-GIT. He trades in being a subhuman, mentally and conspiracy-minded, Neanderthal knuckle-dragger. He is utterly ignorant. He knows no history. And his MAGA is Make America German. Amen. He is just using a Hitlerian playbook. He says that Hitler is his hero. There's a lot of similarities, of course. You become famous by targeting Jews. He's not anti-Israel. He's an anti-Semite. He's a Holocaust denier. Hitler traded an anti-Semitism beginning in 1921-22 because it was the way to become the most famous. History has shown if you hate the Jews, Jews are news. So when you ask how did he become so famous, it is specifically his anti-Semitism. The question is he transactionally anti-Semitic or is he ideologically anti-Semitic? I think it's both. But the way he speaks about blacks, that blacks should all be returned to slavery, and that if you go to a black neighborhood, you're going to be stabbed in the neck, that they're all murderers. We've seen this, of course, with Hitler, who wouldn't even shake Jesse Owens' hands when Jesse Owens dominated the 1936 Olympics, winning 4 gold medals. But Fuentes is playing with fire because in the same way the Nazi movement cultivated hatred they could no longer contain, you have Tucker Carlson saying openly that Nick Fuentes is gay, which I couldn't care less. I have a gay brother. But Ernst Röhm, who was the head of the SA, was killed by Hitler in large part because he was gay. And at some point, Fuentes' followers are going to turn on him because just like Hitler didn't look Aryan in the slightest, neither does Fuentes. He's not this white Norwegian Aryan Ubermensch Superman. He's actually a short, weird guy, kind of like the way Hitler was. He has all these weird tics. He's famous because hatred sells, and hatred towards the Jews sells. And when you come along and you stoke those fires of such incendiary racism against blacks, against Jews, it's going to turn on you. And I think Fuentes is really at risk from his own people. I'm never going to touch him. I wish him a long life and increasing marginalization and invisibility. But I think that his own MAG-GIT movement is going to turn on him.
All right, Richie Black, I can see you pulling some faces there. So you
Did you notice the insults? There was nothing substantive there. There was no, I didn't learn anything from Shmuley. And you're not going to learn, nobody learns anything from Shmuley. But it was a lot of pejoratives. There was a lot of filler, fluff. Oh, he's a little guy. He's this, he's that. I don't think Nick Fuentes is a short guy. I think he's over 6 foot. Not that matters, but I mean, should Shmuley really be insulting somebody on their looks? this is a guy who, he's not winning any beauty contests here. But he said something interesting. He said that hate for the Jews has always made news. I don't agree with that. I think there was a legitimate beef with these people since the dawn of time, because the Persians hated them, the Greeks hated them, the Babylonians hated them, the Assyrians hated them, the Romans hated them. I can go on and on and on and on and on. Why? This is a little insignificant tribal people. Why did so many people hate them, or couldn't stand them, or couldn't be around them? Unless the rumors of this absurd cult are true. Maybe the Romans saw something that these people were doing that they didn't agree with, and they wanted to keep it away from their society. Maybe the Persians saw the same thing. Maybe the Babylonians saw the same thing. The Egyptians, maybe they saw the same thing. I mean, can all these people throughout 5,000, 6,000 years, can they all be wrong? I mean, in medieval Europe, they couldn't take these people. They put them in places, especially in Italy, called ghettos. That's where the term ghetto comes from. There were these small little areas that they would not allow Jews to mingle with the outside world. So Jews could come out at 9 a.m. to work, and then they had to be back at 5 p.m. to go back into the Jewish ghetto. It was for a reason. They kept them separate from the rest of society. And the question is, why? Because they worship a monolithic God? Well, guess who else does? Half the world, if not more than half. But there's one thing Shmuley did not call Nick Fuentes. And there's one thing that this Jerusalem Post article did not say about Owens or Fuentes. They didn't use the word liar. It's very interesting. Somebody's not telling the truth, you call them out. And you give examples of why they're wrong. But these people never do that. They just use these trigger words, anti-Semite, trigger rhetoric, and all this other bullshit. And those days are over. People are over it. People have now figured out what is making sense to them. And their eyes are beginning to open, and it's scaring the shit out of evangelical Christian Zionists and people who support the tribe with little hats. It's going to be interesting to see what Pope Leo does. I don't think he'll do anything. I don't think he cares, frankly. They have other fish to fry. They have to try to convince these Europeans to make more babies. That's what their whole thing is about now, and that's what it's got to be. That's where they have to focus. They have to focus in on getting Europeans back on track with the birth rate. Let's hope he can do that. All right, there's my 2 cents. Thanks again for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Remember, my friends, Satan is always busy. You just saw one of his handlers there, one of his puppets there. Be a man, have a backbone, because masculinity and common sense are worth standing up for. And remember, if it ends in an ism like anti-Semitism, it's a mental disorder. We'll see you later.